Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. Today I'm super excited to be in Fairhope, Alabama with Bobby Green. You guys have heard Bobby's name many, many times. Actually, we did a video together not that long ago, and it was more just related to nursery business type of things. And I've started this new series where we're going to go through some of Bobby's favorite plants, and we got to start with camellias for sure. But give us a little background on you and your family for those people who didn't see the video.
Well, we've seemingly forever had a nursery here in Fairhope, Alabama, which is near Mobile, Alabama, right on the Gulf Coast. And my dad started this nursery way back in the 1930s.
Wow.
And so next year we'll be in our 90th year, but we're constantly reinventing ourselves over that time. And the most recent venture, which is now roughly 25 years, we've been developing new camellias.
Right.
Form and the function of the camellias is what we're looking for. The blooms are secondary, but all camellias seemingly have such a wonderful bloom.
Right. Yeah.
This is one of the first ones we introduced through the Southern Living Plant Collection. This is October Magic Orchid.
Yeah.
It's a very early bloomer. In our climate, the very best blooming Camellia Sazanquas probably peak in mid-November, and we're still a month away from that.
Right,
so they have a very long bloom season.
Yeah, that thing's absolutely loaded with buds. So again, and going back to Mark's video that I shot with him at the Ralston about your plant breeding, I mean, you can see the compact habit of October Magic Orchid. That is a very different habit than what we see.
And what's important with some of the semi-dwarf camellias is to be able to prune them throughout the year and yet still see them set this kind of flower buds.
Right, I got you.
So this will be blooming for at least another 6 weeks.
Right. How long have you, so this was your first introduction, October Magic, the beginning of the October Magic series. How many have you introduced through Southern Living Plant Collection, do you know?
I believe it's 11 now.
11.
With another couple on the way.
Okay, so let's go over to the front yard and show one of the latest. So this is one of your latest introductions. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this is also in the Southern Living Collection. This is October Magic Crimson and Clover. We seem to tend to use 1960s themed songs for a lot of our plant names.
Right.
But Crimson and Clover is a early blooming camellia.
Yes, it is.
Sazanqua. And as the nights progress into November, and we have some 50-degree evenings, the rosy red color that you see in the flower there will change to a dark crimson. Okay,
nice. I have this one. You know, I'm lucky enough to have some of the plants a little ahead of time, and this thing just came out into full bloom. I'm just walking through the landscape, not expecting a Sazanqua to be blooming that early, and this thing was just like, boom! It was in full flower overnight. Yeah, this is going to be a good one.
Give it plenty of room. It's probably an 8 to 10 foot tall plant.
Okay, yeah, and you can see that. We can really see that from the vertical growth and them pretty early on.
But it will develop that crimson color, and it's the darkest crimson red I've seen in the Camellia Sazanqua yet.
Nice. If you hear any road noise where we're standing right now, there's a reason for it. We're right next to a road. You do a lot of work with Fothergilla, and this is actually a species from Baldwin County. Can you tell folks about it?
That's right. It's a brand new species, Fothergilla milleri. Named for Dr. Ron Miller, who championed Fothergilla and has gone all over the South looking for accessions of Fothergilla. A friend of mine brought me cuttings of this plant, which he found near the Florida border of our Baldwin County.
Right.
And the cuttings he brought me, Jim, were something along this order.
Right.
And as a propagator of cuttings, you look at this and just immediately burst out in laughter.
Right.
But we stuck these little cuttings, and darned if some of them didn't root and grew.
That's right.
And they grew beautifully.
Right.
Into a 3 to 4 foot tall mounded form with small white flowers that
Right.
look like, here's one here.
Yeah, here's one still lingering. Yes.
Remind you of bottle brush, and they're beautifully fragrant.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, they're fantastic. For those of you who don't necessarily know Fothergilla, these are native. They'll grow all the way up to, pretty much all of the East Coast, and then
They will.
and
They're
then down
very
into
adaptable.
almost subtropical areas, and then we get fragrant flowers, incredible fall color. Yeah, fantastic. And you've worked with worked in breeding Fothergilla and some blue forms and others. I've seen a few of yours around. So this one will put on some late growth.
Right. All of this lighter green bicolored growth is fall growth. It's probably grown 12 inches here in the last 4 or 5 weeks. And so we'll have yellow, red to purple fall color in these older leaves in November and December, and then we'll have a second burst of color on these leaves from the fall all the way into January, sometimes February. So it's a long fall, winter burst of color.
And you're in zone 9A. Are you 9A or
8B, 9A, depending on the winter.
Okay, so up here where I'm at in zone 7B, these would be fall colored in November, and here more closer to December or whatever. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And then we have that extended color here, I think, because sometimes we're into January before we have a really killing freeze.
Right. Well, it's great that you get that late growth on it. You guys get so much rain that you get a lot of leaf spot on them, and so
exactly.
It wouldn't be great fall color without that new growth.
That's very true. Most of our work in the nursery with breeding is with Camellia Sazanquas, and this is a very close relative of Camellia Sazanqua. This is Camellia brevistyla, and it hails from Taiwan, and I believe it goes up into mainland China a bit. But a notable characteristic about it is this cinnamon-colored bark. It's absolutely beautiful with the sun shining on it. So we started limbing this up into a tree form. So I had to crawl underneath it just to view the beautiful bark. Tiny little white flowers in profusion this time of year, mid-October. And it's a heavy seed producer for us. So we're trying to breed new size into the flower and maybe some pink and red into it to contrast with the cinnamon bark.
So I've come to southern Alabama not expecting to see a mountain laurel, but you're saying that
mountain laurel grows everywhere east of the Mississippi River, from Quebec over into Maine, down into Florida, and over into Louisiana.
Right.
Now, we can't take them out of the mountains and bring them down here and expect them to be happy.
Right.
But we can take the ones from local populations and grow them beautifully. This is one plant, which is probably 25 feet across from a different angle.
And 15 feet tall, it's beautiful, it's clean.
I guess some people would say arguably it's our most beautiful native evergreen shrub. I don't think the argument can be made for anything else but mountain laurel. In the spring, these little bell-shaped flowers are incredible. They cover the bush with pink and white little lanterns all over the plant.
Is this something you're working with as well?
We are, absolutely. The southern forms tend to have less diversity in the colors of the flower.
Right.
But a friend of ours discovered one with a bright pink flower about 80 miles north of here. So it's still a coastal mountain laurel. Right. And we've been taking that and breeding with it and getting darker and darker pink colors. Eventually, there's a possibility to see red flowers and bicolored flowers in southern native mountain laurel.
Wow, that's awesome.
But the southern forms tend to grow better than the New England forms in places along the Piedmont of North Carolina and Atlanta, Memphis, those types of areas than do the New England forms. Right.
Propagation-wise, are they pretty easy to root, or are they?
They're extremely difficult to root.
That's what I thought. Okay. Gotcha.
So the majority of them are in the productions in tissue culture labs.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. So you're also working with Pieris japonica as well.
Right, and this is Pieris japonica, or maybe more precisely Pieris ryukyuensis,
Okay.
temple bells.
Right.
And temple bells and its brethren from ryukyuensis originally came from the southernmost islands of the Japanese archipelago.
Okay.
Down toward Okinawa, almost to Taiwan. And that's why they're so at home in our similar climate along the I-10 corridor. Temple bells has a lot of good attributes with these heavy, almost erect flowers that just cover the plant in late winter.
Yeah, I grew this one at my nursery for years, so it's just a perfect one for the southeast. And so you're working with these, and with the possibility that you're close to.
Right, we're breeding new colors into them, into the flowers, perhaps pink going toward red.
Wow.
But probably more importantly, as incredible as the flowers can be on this in late winter, the new growth that follows can be a brilliant crimson red.
Right, and that lasts longer.
Lasts longer
than the flowers. And these flowers in our area can be a little vulnerable to, we can get some cold. This thing trying to bloom almost too early.
It does.
Yeah, right, yeah. And we get a sneaky frost on them sometimes, so that growth coming after gives us at least it's still going to be a great looking shrub.
Right, and what we're seeing in the breeding is the forms with the red new growth. Even the secondary growth in July and August is still that brilliant red.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's almost like another burst of flowers.
So Bobby, I had no idea you've been hiding this beautiful home garden of yours back here. I've been to the nursery a couple times. I had no idea. This is a beautiful space. Some of these camellias, how old are some of these?
These Camellia Sakae behind us were planted probably in the 1940s by my father.
Wow.
We inherited this property. The home was built in the 20s.
Right.
And we're surrounded by about 3 acres, and as I age, it seems to be 5 acres and 10 acres. It seems to be enlarging.
Right.
As much as these Sakae.
Right.
But what's interesting about this mass of Camellia Sakae is we have 3 different cultivars here.
Right.
Showa-No-Sakae, Shishi Gashira, and milleri Yuki. And which translates to snow on the mountain, and you'd see why when you see this bloom.
Yeah, this is one. I grew all 3 of these at my nursery. These are classics. These are these are classics. But they're also another thing. They're supposed to be dwarfs, right?
To this day, in many gardening books, you'll find all 3 of these described as low spreading shrubs, perhaps suitable for ground cover work. And they are covering a lot of ground.
Right, yeah. Where are we now, 20 feet tall?
It appears to be, yes.
Okay, but I mean, it took how many years?
These are probably untouched in pruning since the 1940s. So what's that? These are 80-year-old plants.
Right, and are the flowers larger on those larger? I mean,
they're a
the
typical
buds are pretty big.
2 to 3 inch flower.
Okay.
But in profusion over a long period.
Okay. Well, but they're shockingly beautiful. Okay, let me ask you a question on pruning camellias. I had a neighbor recently take some 8-foot tall Camellia Sakae down to 3 feet tall, not a leaf on them. I thought he killed them, and they came back beautifully. It took a year and a half, but they came back beautifully. Have you found that just in general that you could go in here and just saw these down? Have you tried this?
We have, and camellias respond beautifully to pruning.
Yes, it takes a while for them to recover.
It does. They burst back into growth the way a holly would in the spring.
Right.
In our area of the hurricanes, though,
Mm-hmm.
We seem to have continual pruning, not of our choice.
Right. Oh, yeah. So you've got experience,
Right.
Yeah, of having it done. Okay, so let's talk about October Magic Ruby, which we have here in front. This is your cultivar.
Correct.
Your
So back
introduction.
to these larger plants, which are described as low growing.
Right.
What we've been trying to do in our breeding work is get some plants that are truly more low growing.
Right.
And won't have to maybe be misdescribed in nursery catalogs.
Right.
We're guilty of it as anyone. But this is October Magic Ruby, which is truly semi-dwarf, compact and rounded form.
Right.
This plant in this 10-gallon container is probably now about 4 years old.
Right. Yeah, we have 2 of these in the landscape, and it's just such a great plant, and the foliage is so clean on it. That's the thing that stands out. You know, I was at Bellingrath yesterday with Todd. You guys will see a video with Todd Lasang probably before this one, and literally walking through, I said, "There's Bobby's camellias." I mean, I can see there's a clear difference with the foliage on that plant.
Well, it's not as if we did anything revolutionary or that you would think was something just incredibly new.
Right.
It was that Camellia Sazanquas were always thought of as these huge structures.
Yeah.
And many of them can be brought down in scale into a more, as they say, modern home landscape.
Right.
And maintained in that 3 to 4 to 5 foot area.
Okay, nice. For those of you who don't know, camellias, for the most part, are zone 7 to 9. You're in 8B, 9A-ish. I'm
Right.
in zone 7B in Raleigh, and they grow beautifully. You could probably test the boundaries. They're good container plants. So if
They
you had
are.
one in zone 5 or 6, you could bring it in if you had a bright place inside, but they'd have to come inside in the wintertime. You hid this garden away from me. now I have to explore this whole place and come back and do this again. So
At any time. My wife says whenever she's early in the morning preparing for her day, she looks out into the garden and there's 3 or 4 strangers walking around.
Right,
So I
funny.
usually would have to have a phone call ahead of time.
right, yeah, definitely. So thanks, Bobby, again. You're always a great host, and I love the plants that you're working on and introducing.
Been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, guys.